Hello and welcome to the Viking Home Companion with another edition of The Good Old Days. Now this story, as far as the good old days is concerned, didn't happen all that long ago. It happened shortly after I had moved from California, which is the Kingdom of the West, back to Ohio, which is the Middle Kingdom or Mid-Realm. And I only lived in the Mid-Realm for about a year and a half before I moved over to Pennsylvania, which is the Kingdom of Ethelmark, where I currently reside. But this story took place while I was still living in Mid-Realm. And it actually involves the first time that I fought at Pennsic, the big event held every year by the Society for Creative Anachronism at Cooper's Lake in Slippery Rock, Pennsylvania, where we have about 10,000 to 12,000 people show up. We turn into a small town for 2 weeks, and we hold our big war, the Pennsic War. The war itself usually has anywhere from 1,500 to 2,000 fighters. And I was fighting with the Barony of Cleftlands, which is Cleveland, Ohio. And this took place during one of the open field battles. And for this particular battle, it was all of the allies versus the Mid-Realm and the East Kingdom. So they had taken all of the allies and put them up at the top of the hill past the castle, the plywood castle that we have there. And the Mid-Realm and the East assembled down at the bottom and marched up to meet the allies in battle. Now, I'm a little mobility challenged. I have some issues with my hips and knees and arthritis. So I had a little trouble keeping up with the unit as the lines advanced. Now, I was armed that day with my teardrop kite and a hand axe. I almost always will prefer a hand axe while fighting in a war, especially if I expect to be in the line at some point. It's short enough that it doesn't get caught up in any of the other things going on around me, and I consider a hand axe to be kind of the Swiss Army knife of SCA warfare, because not only can I hit somebody with it, I can hook things with it. It's got that nice extension of the head past the haft there, so I can grab shields and pull them down so other people can hit them. It can hook pole arms, pull them down so they can't hit someone else, and so on. But at any rate, as I said, the lines were moving up, and I got behind a bit, so I didn't reach them until after the lines had already met and were engaged, and things were mixed up pretty good. So eventually I catch up and I move my way up through until I get up to the front of the line. Now, as I move up, the guy in front of me is killed and he falls down. I step into the hole in the line. Now, as I step up, I notice that the opponent directly diagonal to my right isn't really paying attention, and so I take my hand axe and I just bash him in the side of the head, and he goes down. And now I've got a shield man directly in front of me, but I've got 3 spearmen or pikemen right behind him. There's one directly behind and one to either side of him. Now, pikes in the SCA are approximately 9 feet long, so they've got a pretty long range. Now, I can't close on them. I'm in the line, and I've got a shieldman right in front of me. So my job at this point is just to try and stay alive as long as possible, and if possible, also take out the shield man in front of me. Now, one of the things you have to understand about me, though, aside from the fact that I'm very experienced, I have been fighting now for nearly 40 years in the SCA, at least when the body lets me get away with it, which these days isn't all that often. But I'm also extremely hard of hearing. I normally wear hearing aids, and I can't wear them when I'm in my helmet out fighting. And so I'm virtually deaf when I'm out fighting in a war situation. Unless you're talking directly into my grill, generally speaking, I can't hear you, or at least I can't understand you. It's one of the reasons why I don't typically fight directly in the front line with the unit. I'll usually be in the second rank and move up to plug holes. But at least that way, initially, I have a way of keeping track of what's going on simply by watching the people around me. But what this also has led me to do is pay a huge amount of attention to my peripheral vision. If you watch me fighting, especially when I'm in a melee or war situation, you'll see me from time to time just kind of panning my head back and forth a little bit, and that's because I'm extending my peripheral vision and watching for movement. I'm not necessarily focusing on what's happening over here, I'm just looking for movement. So I'm fighting with the shield man in front of me, and the pikeman directly behind him takes a shot at me, and I see that coming, and I just block it. And I'm fighting, and I see movement from my right, and I block with my axe. And then I see movement from my left, and I block with my shield. And I just keep this up. And I keep the 3 pikemen and the shield man engaged for over 3 minutes until the end of the battle, when they finally managed to combine on me and kill me, and I go down. So, like I said, this was basically right at the end of the battle, and I'm feeling pretty good about myself because I was very effective. I had killed 1 person outright, and I had tied up 4 others, keeping them focused on me. So I had a 4-on-1 situation, and I tied them up for a very long time. 3 minutes in the SCA combat is a very long time, believe me. It may not seem that way from the outside, but on the inside, it's a long time. So that gave my people a numbers advantage somewhere else. Now, I can't tell you for certain whether or not Mid-Realm and East won that particular battle. My memory at this point isn't that good on that point. However, after the battle is over, I get up and there's some hay bales that are stacked up along the edge of the battlefield, and I go sit on one of those, and I take my helmet off, and I'm relaxing, and I'm feeling pretty good about myself. When those 4 people come over to me very quickly, and they looked at me and said, "What are you, some kind of a Jedi? You weren't even looking and you blocked those shots." And I could not resist. I just looked at them and I said, "Ah, my young Padawans, you have much to learn." At which point, we all bust up laughing. And I explained to them what had happened, that because of the peripheral vision thing and the hard of hearing, that I pay a lot of attention to that type of movement. And so if I see movement, I just throw a block, expecting and hoping to hit something. So at any rate, that's my story about being called a Jedi while fighting in my first, well, wasn't my first Pennsic, but it was the first Pennsic I actually got to go out and fight in. So, thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed yourself. Yeah, sure, you betcha.